This is Advanced Math 2.3 notes. That's Unit 2, Lesson 3. And the title for these notes are Solving Equations. We're going to go through and get right to them. Solve number 1. X to the fourth minus 9x squared plus 20 equals 0. All right, when we factor, this here should feel like review. You've been doing this for some time. Typically it's x and x because x times x is x squared, but this time I want it to be x to the fourth, so they each need a squared. Minus 5 minus 4, so it can multiply to a positive and add up to the negative. A really quick side note, because we're going to use this in just a little bit, the ones we're used to, that we've done in the past most often, look something like this, and then you factor. All right, now if you look here, the power is 1. We've never talked about it before, but half of 2 is 1. And when you factor, you take x to the 1 and x to the 1, which happens to be the middle exponent. Same thing here, half of 4 is 2. And you put x squared and x squared because that's the middle exponent. It's just a pattern we may not have really recognized before, but we will need it today. Okay, so x squared minus 5 equals 0, x squared minus 4 equals 0, x squared equals 5, x squared equals 4, and we square root both sides. Don't forget, when you square root both sides of an equation, it's plus or minus. Plus or minus 5 is not a perfect squared, so it's root 5. Plus or minus 4 is a perfect squared, so it's 2. Now, if you wanted to, right here, you could have continued to factor. X plus 2x minus 2, which would have given you that, and that's not factorable, so that is the solution there. All right, moving right along, number 2. X to the 1/2 minus 4x to the 1/4 equals 21. Okay, so here is one of the ones I was talking about that we will need to know that pattern. Is this, well, first off, let's move the 21 over. X to the 1/2 minus 4x to the 1/4 minus 21 equals 0. All right, does this look like a trinomial guess and check? Let's see. 1/2 is bigger than 1/4, so that should come out to the front. That's your leading coefficient or your leading term. Half of 1/2 is a fourth, so it is going to work. So we can factor using the trinomial guess and check. All right, now, how do you know what your exponent's going to be? Remember what I said earlier, it's always the middle. The middle here was x squared, or just think of half of your first. Half of 2 is 1, 1 and 1. Half of 4 is 2, 2 and 2. Half of 1/2 is a fourth, 1/4 and 1/4. However you want to think of it, always the middle exponent or half of your leading exponent. And x to the 1/4 times x to the 1/4, you add your exponents, and 1/4 plus 1/4 is indeed the 1/2. All right, it's going to be plus 3 minus 7, x to the 1/4, and I guess I should show a little more work there. You don't have to show this work that I'm going to show, but if it helps you, you can. X to the 1/4 plus 3 equals 0. X to the 1/4 minus 7 equals 0. And then I'm going to get x by itself. X to the 1/4 equals negative 3. X to the 1/4 equals positive 7 because I add the 7 and I subtract the 3. I'm going to do the one. How do you undo a fractional exponent? You raise both sides to the reciprocal power. I'm hoping you remember that from last year. Why to the reciprocal power? Because they undo each other. A power to a power you multiply. 1/4 times 4 is 1, so you're left with just x, which is what we're trying to do. We're trying to get x by itself. Equals 7 to the 4th is 2,401. Okay, and let's check here. We would raise both sides to the 4th power. And those undo each other. X equals negative 3 to the 4th power is 81. Now there's something tricky with this one, and I'm hoping some of you have caught it. There is a mistake made. There is a mistake made. Here's the deal. Check remember fourth power is equivalent to the fourth root. So plug 2401 and take the fourth root. Fourth root of 2,401 is indeed 7. It works. That's a good answer. Right here, when you take the fourth root of 81, it equals 3, not -3. So this here is not going to work. That one is no real solution. You don't have to put no real solution as your answer because you do have a solution, and it's 2,401. Now, how do you know when it's going to work and when it's not going to work? A quick and easy shortcut way is looking right here. Why does it not work? It's because you cannot, I'm going to quickly write it here, the square root of a number, a square root of a variable, cannot equal a negative. For example, you can square both sides and say x is 25, but the square root of 25 is not equal -5. The same is true for the fourth root, the sixth root of any variable can never equal a negative number. Whatever that negative number may be, it's not going to work. So what two things have to happen together in order for it to not work? This number here is even, a 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, any even number. And I guess I should have wrote it up here, so I'm going to change it. This number here is even, and this number here is negative. If those two things happen at the same time, it's not going to work. You can solve it if you'd like and then check it, or just say, nope, not going to waste my time. It's not going to work. I'm going to solve the other one. This one's even, but it's a +7, not a negative. All right, we'll do more of those in class together. Number 3, x minus 2 to the 1/2 plus 3 parentheses x minus 2 to the 1/4 minus 10 equals 0. I'm hoping you recognize that this is a substitution problem. I'm going to let u equal x minus 2 and rewrite it. U to the 1/2 power plus 3u to the 1/4 power minus 10 equals 0. Okay, so I am going to factor. It's a trinomial guess and check because half of a half is a fourth. It's in the right form. U and u, either take half of that number or just take the middle. Half of a half is a fourth, which is the middle exponent. I know it's going to be plus and minus, and we're going to put +5 and -2. And then I'm going to solve each one and plug the u back in at the end. U to the 1/4 plus 5 equals 0. U to the 1/4 minus 2 equals 0. And solve each one. U to the 1/4 equals -5. U to the 1/4 equals +2. Now, this number down here is indeed even. If that number here were, say, a 5 or a 3, I wouldn't have to worry about it. But if it's even, I cannot have it equaling a negative number. The fourth root of any number is never going to be negative, so this one here is not going to work. So that one there is no real solution. I'm going to get a solution over here, but not on this one. Now, if you rose both sides to the 4th power, you would get an answer, but when you plugged it in, it would not work. Okay, I'm going to do this one. Raise both sides to the reciprocal power. Crosses out. U equals 2 to the 4th is 16. Now, please do not be tempted to say, oh, I'm done, because there was no u in the original problem. We have to plug it back in. X minus 2 equals 16. Add your 2, x equals 18. There was no solution here, so x 18 is the only answer. You do not have to put no real solution, comma 18 on your answer column for the test. When I see just this, I will know that the other one did not work. All right. number 4. 6 parentheses x plus 1 raised to the 2/3 minus x plus 1 raised to the 1/3 minus 1 equals 0. Okay, this is another substitution problem. I'm going to let u equal x plus 1. I'm going to rewrite it 6u to the 2/3 minus u to the 1/3 minus 1 equals 0. I can see that it is a trinomial guess and check because half of 2/3 is indeed 1/3. I'm going to double bubble. You can put on pause factor on your own and then hit play. I'm going to use 2 and 3. U to what power? Either take half of the first or just use the middle. 1/3. My last sign's negative, so I know it's going to be positive negative. And this is what it ends up being. -3, positive 2 comes out to be the -1. All right, let's go ahead and solve. 2u to the 1/3 power minus 1 equals 0. 3u to the 1/3 power plus 1 equals 0. And add and divide. Subtract and divide. U to the 1/3 equals 1/2. U to the 1/3 equals -1/3. Now, please do not get this one mixed up with the last one. Can you see where these numbers down here are odd? So it is okay for it to be negative. You do not cross this one out saying no real solution. The 3 is okay. It is okay to have, oh, I just made a mess of that. It is okay to have it equaling a negative when the denominator is a 3. All right, so 3 and 3, we don't have to worry about the negatives. We just go through and work them out. Raise both sides to the reciprocal power, 3/1, which is the same as 3. U equals, those undo each other, 1/2 times 1/2 times 1/2 is 1/8. Same thing here, raise both sides to the reciprocal power. Not multiply, raise. Those undo each other. -1/3 times -1/3 times -1/3 is -1/27. And now we have to plug back in. X plus 1 equals 1/8. X plus 1 equals -1/27. And I'm going to subtract 1. Subtracting 1 is equivalent to subtracting 8/8 because 8/8 is the same as 1. So 1/8 minus 8/8 is -7/8. And let's see, subtract 1. I'm going to write that as -27/27. And I'm going to erase this because I may have a solution over there. X equals -7/8. Gone. X equals -28/27. So in this one I have two solutions. That is -7/8 and -28/7. Yes, expect something like this on the test. All right, number 5. And again, I will go over questions in class. 6x to the -2/3 plus 7x to the -1/3 minus 3 equals 0. All right. It's different because of the negative exponent. So let's just address that and get it over with first. Very similar to what we've done in the past. 6/x to the 2/3 plus 7/x to the 1/3 minus 3 equals 0. Remember, these are different terms, so that means different fractions. Fractional equation, we clear it by multiplying everything by the common denominator. Now, it may look a little tricky here, but x to the 2/3 is your common denominator. And it is always going to be your largest exponent or larger. Okay, so these cross out, leaving behind just 6 plus. Now these have the same base, so you subtract the exponents. 2/3 minus 1/3 is 1/3. 7x to the 1/3. Minus, there's nothing to reduce there, 3x to the 2/3 equals 0. Now, personally, I don't mind factoring backwards, but if there's an equal sign, I can divide everything by a -1, make that positive, and rearrange it. If you like factoring backwards, you can leave it backwards. I'm not going to. I'm going to rewrite it. Dividing by a -1 is equivalent to adding that to the other side, subtracting that to the other side, subtracting that to the other side, and changing all your signs. Okay, so positive 3x to the 2/3 minus 7x to the 1/3 minus 6 equals 0. All right, I can see it's a trinomial, guess and check. Half of 2/3 is 1/3. 3x x equals 0. I'm going to use the middle exponent, it's 1/3. And plus minus, it's going to be plus 2 minus 3. You can check it. Positive 2, -9 gives you the -7 in the middle. So then I have, I'm hoping you guys can solve it in your head. If this equals 0, you subtract and divide. You get x to the 1/3 equals -2/3. And this one is x to the 1/3 equals positive 3. Do you see how that worked? If that equaled 0, subtract the 2, divide the 3. If this equals 0, you add the 3 and you end up here. All right, I'm going to rewrite those. X to the 1/3 equals -2/3. And x to the 1/3 equals 3. Now, I'm going to solve each one separately. The denominator is 3, which means we don't have to worry about crossing anything out and saying no real solution. It's okay if they're negative as long as that denominator is odd. All right, let's raise both sides to the 3rd power. X equals, you can't think of it as just -2 times -2 times -2, which is -8, over 3 times 3 times 3, which is 27, comma, here I'm going to raise both sides to the 3rd power as well. It's getting kind of messy and small. The fractions undo each other, and I get x equals 3 times 3 times 3 is 27. And those two are my solutions, -8 over 27, comma, 27. All right, be sure you mark any questions you may have and come in with them ready into class. That is it for this lesson.